Good afternoon, viewers. You're welcome to the Polity here on Kaftan TV. As usual, we shall be discussing very interesting issue that, of course, has direct impact on our families. On October 21st, in the floor of the Senate, there was an interesting debate, one in which the legislature was debating the right or otherwise of a woman's decision on abortion. And then they say today we shall be looking at abortion debate. It is the woman's right to decide whether she wants to have an abortion. Is it the woman's right to decide it, or it is for the immediate society or the world around her? That is the issue we'll be looking at today. But before we go into the topic, let us have a slight background of abortion intervention, legal intervention for abortion in this country. As far back as 1916 was when we had the first intervention, legal intervention on abortion in the country. And of course, it was a code that was introduced by the colonial administration at the time. And of course, they imported it from Europe to come to bear here in Nigeria. Then there was an attempt at it in 1960, and then it went further between the 70s and the 80s. Reforms were attempted, and there was failure on these reforms. And then recently we are now having the amendment of the Criminal Code Act, within which the clauses are being proposed for a change. Now we shall look at the section which form the clauses that form the bill for the change for amendment by the National Assembly. Can you at the background please help us with a shot of the sections, the 228, section 229 and 230, which of course is talking about the penalty for anyone who decide to go for abortion without it considered to be lawful. As far as the nation is concerned, while it can be permitted, it must be within the definition of lawfulness. And that was a query and misunderstanding between legislators, for which they decided that that bill will have to go through a review. Now, it's section 228 here. You can see on your screen. Say any person who with intent to procure the miscarriage of a woman, whether she is or is not with a child, unlawfully attempts to administer to her or causes her to procure abortion, to take any poison or other dangerous things, is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 14 years. Then the next one, section 229, also talks about implication. It says anyone who unlawfully supplies to or procure for any person's action, anything knowing it is intended to be unlawful, used to procure miscarriage, is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for 3 years. This is the section for which the amendment is being sought. And the sponsor of the bill, Senator Babidele Michael, of course, is advocating that the penalty should be up to 10 years, because the belief is that 3 years is very short a time for anyone who commits such criminal act of terminating a life that is yet to be born, whose destiny we cannot tell in promoting and developing the country. And we go further to look at other section of that that talks about the abortion in the Criminal Code Acts, of course, in the early, what they call it, ordinance. Any woman who with intent to procure her own miscarriage is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 7 years. We see these stories several times on social media, where a woman is threatening and openly saying, I'm going to abort a child, or the man is saying, you must put it out. These are the implications for such action if taken, and anyone decide to take legal action against you for such a decision. There is one more section there, which is I think 297 also, that talks about this. These are the codes where it is reflected. It says a person, that is section 297 of the, it says a person is not criminally responsible for performing in good faith and with reasonable care and skill a surgical operation upon any person for his benefit or upon an unborn child for the preservation of the mother's life, if the person of the operation is reasonable, having regard to the patient's state and all the circumstances of the case. Now you can see that medical professionals are exempted from this on the ground that they carry such out within the lawful guide. And what is the lawful guide? These are the issues that we shall be exploring here today when we have our guests in here to sit with us and discuss the rights of a woman, and then the influence of society members, even parents who sometimes can say, oh no, you cannot have this child, you are pregnant for a man I don't like. These are issues we'll be looking at. We'll begin to see our limitation or otherwise as parents, as friends, as lovers, as even husbands or wife, over the right of a child to live. So we proceed after this. We shall be having our conversation. Let's go for a break. Welcome back from the short break. Now we are looking at the abortion debate. And looking through the abortion debate, we are beginning to ask, is it for the woman to decide the state of her pregnancy, whether she can terminate it at the point she wants to for whatever personal reason she has, or that it is the world around her that should decide that it is a right for that decision to be taken. This is a very, very peculiar situation, and then the National Assembly is looking at that bill in trying to amend the clause of the Ordinance Act, which is commonly referred to as the Penal Code, to ensure that it is streamlined with modern reality. But when that debate was going on in the Senate, of course, the last story on October 21 was that at plenary session, the Senate was compelled to step down the bill because it considered that a thorough research has not yet been done on it, and then let them not make a mistake of compounding the problem for medical personnel and even the persons who may become victim of the law by virtue of its enforcement if any medical facility decide to be alive to the content as it is now. And so in doing that, two concerns were majorly noted, that from the Kwara Central Senator Salih Mustafa, and then from Abdul Dengi from the Bauchi Central Senator also. Interestingly, both of them are senators from the Central District of their respective states who are showing this concern that no, it is the Senate must be careful over the language with which the bill is being drafted, so that doctors are not discouraged from providing life-saving interventions towards those persons who will be needing it. And the other concern was to caution what they consider the blanket criminalization of those who may be involved even in the process, whether they are providing the instruments or drugs, or the medical facility where it is done, or the doctors themselves, the medical personnel themselves who are involved in trying to save the life who may have been brought to their facility, given the danger that is involved. Of course, earlier I told you, before we went to the break, I told you that our guests will be joining us. Of course, the guest is around, but some technical issues are keeping the guests from joining us immediately. So she'll soon be joining us via Zoom, and then we'll continue with the conversation. Now, beside the expressed fear over this bill, it is important for us to know that Section 229, which prescribed 3 years, Section 229 talks about anybody who supplies the abortion instrument or drugs or anything that aided it. The section is saying that any person who unlawfully, as you can see on your screen, supplies to or procures for any person anything, knowing it is intended to be unlawfully used to procure miscarriage, is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for 10 years. This is a particular section that is Senate is seeking a 10-year review. It wants to amend to make the penalty 10 years. But again, you have to look at that law very well. Now, the person who is supplying the abortion material, may not necessarily have been doing it because he or she knows it is illegal. There are those who may know it is illegal. And so the debate in the Senate was, at what point do you ascertain that this particular act of abortion that is about to be committed, this particular act of terminating a pregnancy midway before maturation, at what point do you know it is illegal? Mothers in the house, young ladies, this is an opportunity for you to join us in this conversation. Let us share that part, that pain. Let the contribution become robust. Let it be part of the contribution we are making to the Senate here. Beaming your voice to them to understand the reality around it. 2 senators have cautioned the entire 109 Senate to look deeply on this matter and be sure that whatever decision they are taking is not one that will constitute serious danger to life, that will constitute serious problem to the medical practice as it relates to the issue of life saving when there is a threatening situation related to any pregnancy. Now, 3 years in their thinking is not just small. It's not sufficient time for the punishment that is intended to be meted out to anyone who commits such a crime. And so we ask, is 10 years what would have been it? There is the moral angle. Can there be more appeal for suasion? Can there be more suasion to make sure that people know that it is wrong and then they follow what the conscience rightly say they should and stand by it to ensure that we do not find ourselves having to have more complicated challenge for this one. Now, in section 230 of the Acts, which also is part of the 4 places it was mentioned, it says any woman who would intend to procure her own miscarriage is guilty of a felony. This is the point we are asking now. This is self-induced. It's talking about self-induced abortion. In this debate, does a woman have the right to take that decision? Or it is those who are around her, family, friends. Yes, the body is her own. The changes which occur in course of the pregnancy is hers. The experience of childbearing, of pregnancy at that time, she goes through it. But while this debate is on, we are asking, is it for her to decide? No, it is 2 months, I'm not comfortable with this, I'm going to yank it off. Oh no, it's 6 months, this pain, I can't bear it for the remaining 3 months, no, I'm going to take it off. Oh, this child, I never planned for it, the man I got pregnant for, I didn't know is this irresponsible, no, I'm going to take it off. Oh, the man has become a terrible wife beater, I cannot keep the child as a memory for him, so that I'll keep remembering the pain I suffered in his house, I'm going to take it off. In this case, the law is saying you are facing 7 years if you take such a decision. So right now, when we return, the guests will be joining us, and after that we'll open a line so you can also join us in the conversation. But we are going to continue with this debate immediately after this break. Welcome back. It is the Polity here on Kaftan TV. And our topic for today is still the issue of interest. The conversation is centered around a debate on abortion. The abortion debate, who decides? Is it the woman who carries the child, or the society and the world around her that should decide for her if it was appropriate for her to have the child or the pregnancy terminated? That is the issue we shall be looking at today. Of course, the line will be open very soon, but before then, joining me here in the studio, joining me here through Zoom is KEMI YESUFU, a feminist, a social and public commentator, an analyst who gives insight into any issues that she picks interest on. KEMI, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Now, the topic remains abortion debate. Who decides? Now, let's have a little what they call interaction with these section 229 of the Criminal Code Ordinance of 1916, which of course is the basis on which the several other laws on bill for pregnancy termination, which came up sometime in the 80s, sponsored by the Ministry of Health under the late Becker Ransom Kuti, and then after which again we now have another attempt at amending the law. But this particular bill, which is before the Senate and for which they are seeking to make an amendment, is on this section 229. Please help us, if you can, to have that on the screen. And it says, any person who unlawfully supplies to or procures for any person anything knowing it is intended to be unlawfully used to procure miscarriage is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 3 years. The Senate is seeking to review this in such a way that the penalty will no longer be 3 years, but to be upwardly reviewed to be 10 years. Now, the question is, when is an abortion unlawful? My beautiful guest and detailed person, can you join us? What constitutes an unlawful abortion or termination of pregnancy in your view?
Well, I think that I would rather put it this way, that Nigerian Senate has misplaced priorities. National Assembly has misplaced priorities because they push for this amendment. It's actually a House bill. It has just been sent to the Senate for concurrence. And I would like to say unequivocally that it's a waste of legislative time and resources. If you ask the average Nigerian woman what their problem is or what their problems are, I'm sure none of them will talk about that section and even seek an upward review. So what our problems are very different, and anything that will further make Nigerian women have to take the only option of unsafe abortions, going to places that people are not qualified to terminate a pregnancy, anything that will make abortions even more clandestine in Nigeria equals to more unsafe abortions. And if you look at the data, that is why it is very worrisome. You have a National Assembly that doesn't make laws based on data, doesn't make laws based on the views of those that law impacted on. That's why I started by telling you that if you ask the average Nigerian woman what her problem is, if you even narrow it down to the issue of safe motherhood or their access to reproductive care health, none of them will tell you that you should increase the already punitive, the already insensitive, the already unintelligent law that says that anybody found with any product or instrument that can be used to, do a D&C or an abortion should be jailed for 10 years. Now, no, Nigerian woman, I doubt it. I said it to you privately when you called me. I said, I'm sure that if you do a census or any kind of voting today, and it can be at least a secret ballot that Nigerian women can vote, none of them I doubt they will have an overwhelming victory, overwhelming rejection of this move by the National Assembly. Like you rightly said, and I like the way you've coined your topic, it should be an issue of women having the choice, the economic, the health choice to say, I want to continue, I want to see that this pregnancy to full time, or to say for this or that reason, I rather terminate this pregnancy. And rather than the National Assembly taking Nigeria backward 100 years, what they actually should do with those sections 228, 229, and 230 is to just expunge them from the Constitution and rather replace them with laws that will give women access to safe abortions. Safe abortion is part of women's reproductive health rights. It's also part of safe motherhood. And you cannot talk about universal health coverage without women, who form 50% of the population, being able to be assisted through law, through policy, through infrastructure, through systems, to also have their children safely. You can't talk safe mother, which is pre, during, and post, pregnancy care, without talking about safe abortions. Like I mentioned earlier, look at the data. Nigeria is the #2 country in the world. We are not in the war, but we are the #2 country in the world with the highest number of maternal mortality rates in the world. And if you just a simple Google search, we show you that some researchers put it at 10%, some put it as high as 40%, that 40% of that maternal mortality is caused by unsafe abortions. And then a lawmaker will now sit down, and the most important thing to him in the amendment of the criminal code is for you to even further bring punitive measures for somebody who is carrying an abortion product or instrument. I think it's very archaic, unintelligent, and wicked type of lawmaking.
All right. You have started the conversation, but again, let's look at this issue of safe abortion. We have expressed concern on the issue of what makes an abortion illegal, and now you've introduced to the conversation safe abortion. Juxtapose these two together. Let's come to a middle ground. At what point is an abortion safe and considered to be lawful?
Okay, you still want to take me to the issue of laws. If you've got legislator and you're a very deep journalist, and I actually wanted to commend you for your sincere commitment to women issues. And when I remember you were covering gender for Tribune, you were so committed, and you would take the women Federal Minister of Women Affairs budget every year and analyze, the importance of every budget item and implementation. I must commend, and I also have to commend Captain TV, because it takes a lot of courage and editorial boldness and sensibility for you to want to discuss a very sensitive issue like abortion in Nigeria. The truth of the matter is that law everywhere is influenced by the culture and the nuances. And in Nigeria here, our laws are greatly, influenced by, Christianity and Islam and our cultures. And I must say that Christianity, totally is a bit silent. There's no clear, but the general culture of Christianity says that abortion is the same. In Islam, I think it's about just a 4 months, period that's allowed to try to save the life of the mother. So all that influenced our law. So as it is by Nigerian law, codified Nigerian law, as you have explained, 228, 229, 230 sections of the criminal code. And if you look at the penal code, also the penal code is not in debate now. But if you look at the penal code, because there are also Nigerian women in the area governed by the penal code, abortion is illegal. So technically in Nigeria, the only abortion that is safe, or D&C that is safe, is when the mother's child, or maybe now with better medical equipment, that the fetus, the child of the fetus also is endangered, that the doctor can now advise and say, we don't see you are safer, terminating this pregnancy for either the mother or the child. So that's when in Nigerian setting, according to Nigerian law, that's the only time that abortion is legal, when the life of the mother or the child is at risk. And then when you say safe abortions, thank you for asking me that, because safe abortions means that you will approach a qualified medical personnel, a doctor, who will advise you that, it's still safe or unsafe, or the risk is too high for you to now terminate that pregnancy. Then based on the advice after the examinations and everything, the examination of the pregnant woman, the doctor will now advise you that, you can still go ahead, with the length of pregnancy, or not. So safe abortion is not something that is done whimsically or with so much joy and laughter from the person or the woman who is affected, So most times when you meet America in an abortion clinic, a well set up abortion clinic, they are trained, they're experienced. They will tell you, you can't go forward, or this is the best time, or this is the best intervention to terminate that pregnancy at this, stage of the pregnancy. That's what safe abortion means. And of course, it means pre-abortion counseling, a abortion taking place in a clean, safe, abortion environment, and then post-abortion care. That's what safe abortion means.
All right. Before we continue the conversation, we'll now throw the lines open. The lines will be on your screen. You can join us in the conversation. Please, when you're calling in, be sure that you have the volume of your TV set down. Please lower it completely so that you can hear you. We can hear you and not struggling to hear yourself, hoping to have the television hauling back at you. We are still talking the abortion debate. Who decides? Is it the woman or the society around her? We've just had the concept of safe abortion. And let me take it out from that. Safe abortion, given the record high mortality rates in our country, do you think the act of safe abortion would in any way promote a safe childbearing?
I explained earlier, safe motherhood, safe abortions is a core part of safe motherhood. Safe motherhood means pre, during, and post-pregnancy care. So if during, you could call it a pre-stage where the woman says, oh, I don't think for economic reasons. I know when you talk about abortion, people always feel that, oh, it's one reckless young woman that wants to go and terminate a pregnancy because she has been reckless in her life, she has been careless, she's irresponsible. It's not always like that. And women don't take that decision to have an abortion so easily. It takes a lot of thought. And, you know, to be honest, a lot of women live, they are not the happiest people having to, you know, have gone under an abortion. So that's why, you know, when you're talking about safe abortion, it's part of, you know, safe motherhood. And it should be a service that's readily provided in a situation that there's no stigma, there's no judgment, and then the people who are handling that, those services are very, you know, professional. And like to answer your question, it will greatly reduce maternal mortality. It will improve health outcomes amongst women. It will definitely do that, because then, if, of course, part of the counseling is also to tell the woman that abortions are actually not part of planned parenthood. They are not. It's not a family planning option, right? There are other family planning options. You can use contraception, the natural method, and things like that. So the woman is also taught that. So when the woman knows and is told by medical personnel that even though you're being given an abortion at request by your own decision after counseling and being explained to, I'm sure a well-trained doctor will tell and not tell the woman that, please note that safe abortion is not also a part of, you know, family planning or contraception. So it's for me, there is nothing. I think it's just a matter of ignorance. People don't really understand the issue. They think that when you give women access to safe abortions, it becomes a tea party or it becomes one a carnival for them. No, because any trained medical personnel will tell you that, madam, dear sister, please note that safe abortion is not a part of family planning. It's just, you know, an intervention that you needed now, and we're going to help you get in the safest and the professional manner. But there are other ways of preventing unwanted pregnancies.
Okay, now this issue borders on the fundamental human right of the person who is taking the decision, a painful one, of course, not one that, like you said, is a tea party decision. Now, we're looking at the right of the person who, for reasons best known to her or best known to her following conversation and consultation with her loved ones, family, parent, husband or partner, as the case may be, and all others around her, is thinking, let me go on this decision. When such decision is taken at such a time, will you consider this to be unlawful? Will you consider it to be indiscriminate? Will you consider it to be some sort of whimsical decision taken when there is a need to respect the supreme will that wants a child here on earth?
You're putting me in a very difficult position. What I'm going to answer is that like I've mentioned earlier, even in my introduction, my introductory intervention is that unsafe abortions contribute 10 to 40% of maternal mortality in Nigeria. And Nigeria is the number 2 country, maternal mortality. I think about 996 deaths per 100,000 live births. That is disgraceful. And what that also means is that there are women who are now seeking for abortions. Some of them are lucky to get it in places that they survive and they don't have any scars. Some are unlucky, they get it in places that they get infections, they get it leads to their death, they lead to death. So what it means is that whether women are acquiring these abortions legally or illegally, that there are abortions taking place, and some of them turn out to be unsafe and lead to the death of these women, which is something that we need to stop, right? Bringing in religion, like I mentioned earlier, it's true that some Christians argue that there are parts of the Bible that say that God speaks about knowing a person right from when he was in his mother or her mother's womb, right? But also the same Bible says that only the living can praise the Lord, only the living can serve God, only the living can repent. And for me, it's better to keep an already legal entity, because in Nigeria we don't respect a woman's agency. When you talk about a woman's agency, that means that a woman as an adult who is of sound body and sound mind can take certain decisions, including the tough one, including the unsettling one. There are some girls who they've been promised heaven and earth by their partner, and they say, okay, since you are going to marry, since you are going to this and that, I can always take it. And she takes that suddenly the man is changing. And you see, defend, it's a very difficult situation. There are some women who have 4 children they are struggling to feed, and they and their husbands take the decision that we just have another 5th child. Look at the economy. And the most important thing is that we must stop being sentimental about population, or family plan in Nigeria. In Nigeria, as we currently have, these are things that anybody can go search. Our population growth outstrips food production. Food is one of the fundamental necessities of a human being. Population growth is outstripping economic growth. Population growth is outstripping GDP. That's why we are poor. One reason why we are poor is that we have, as a country, we are having more children that we can cater for. We are having a population that we cannot cater for. We cannot protect properly. We cannot educate properly. We cannot give healthcare properly. We cannot do anything properly because, okay, beyond that, like you said, if you now make laws that are not realistic of the situation at hand, you go and check the data on early initiation into sex of young girls. In Nigeria, we have a culture where a young girl is initiated into sex by much older men. And this also explains some research that you can Google. This also explains why there's a higher HIV infection among girls. So it is good for a country. Most of the countries who have softened their laws, who have changed their laws, they're not doing it to question their creator. They are doing it to face the reality of the changing times, and to say that let us even save those who are already alive, who already have NIM, for example, in Nigeria. Let us save them before you now start talking about a person or somebody that, or like a fetus is not already a legal entity in Nigeria. So that's my own thinking. That's my take. I'm a Christian, but I believe, like I said, that only the living can praise the Lord. So it is better for us to have save women as much as we can, and then salvation, no matter what, is a personal thing. So whoever you are given the chance to live again can now discuss the salvation with God, And then I strongly believe, I must end by saying that religion, Nigeria is a secular state. That's what we say in our constitution.
Yeah.
So religion should be a private thing, and the state should not legislate based on its self-acclaimed secularism.
Thank you very much for that intervention. Looking at the way the debates went in the Senate, and the decision was to step it down, do you think is it the best decision by the Senate at the time over this matter?
Yes, I must commend the Senate because the most important thing is very important in lawmaking to make sure that the law is not ambiguous, and there was so much ambiguity in that law. So, for example, if a pharmacist now or maybe a medical instrument supplier, dealer, who is licensed by government, who maybe belongs to the relevant guilds, is going somewhere to supply an abortion pill or an instrument to, to conduct a D&C, and you now arrest that person. Or maybe there's a young woman who has met with the doctor and has been, giving those pills to use on time, because, all these things are, based on the proper timing, and then you arrest the person. So I think it needs to, that ambiguity needs to be cleared. But like I said, I'll go a step further by saying that increasing the years, for a person to serve if found with the abortion products or instruments is not the problem of Nigerian women. And like I said earlier, and I insist that anything that will make abortions more clandestine will lead to higher numbers of unsafe abortions and then higher numbers of maternal deaths. But Nigeria proves to be a society that doesn't really care about women. And I'm saying lots of responsibility. If you look at our cultures and our laws and some of the way women have to struggle for everything, you begin to feel that this society does not care about the women. If you really do care about the women, you will not bring any law that will make unsafe abortions even more clandestine and then lead to more maternal death. So my advice to the National Assembly is to, jettison that bill, throw it into the basket. That bill is supposed to be in the dustbin. It doesn't deserve, to see light. It should just be thrown into the dustbin. And really, the House members, whichever committee that brought up that bill, they deserve to, they really need to sit back and re-examine the waste of time and legislative, resources that they have done in bringing up that amendment. There's so many things to be amended in the criminal code, and that's the only thing. It just shows you they want to control women by all means. They want to control women's body by all means. We legislate for men. We legislate for men's bodies. We don't. But it's always the woman's body that everybody is excited, is hell bent on, legislating on.
This line of thought brings me to a semi-melodrama at plenary that day when the senator from Kogi, who just returned back after suspension of 6 months to the Senate, wanted to speak on the bill, and it turned out that she was recognized after the bill had been stepped down and the comment was not in any way taken. As a feminist, very concerned about the rights of women and their due recognition at any time based on merit, not because they are just women. I've always heard you talking about a woman not just for being a woman, but for the merits as it relates to the particular issues that she is involved in. Now, looking at that melodrama and how it played out, do you think it was in any way denying a feminine voice on a very, very sensitive feminine matter? And if you were the one given that opportunity, what would you have suggested or acted?
Well, both of us, we have covered the parliament, so we know what the parliament will state. And once the gavel is hit, that's the end of that that debate. But the Senate president, to give him credit, he actually he was disposed to allowing Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan to make an input as a female senator, as one of the 4 female senators in the Red Chamber. But he was stopped by the former District Governor, Senator Adams Oshomole. I wish that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan had taken, raised her hand. You know the power of the gavel. That it's the presiding officer that will choose who will, contribute to the base. I don't know how early she raised her hand, and I have to commend the Senate president that he did try to use his power to allow her to speak. But when he was countered by another senator, he had to, now describe the part of the standing orders that based on which he now ruled again that she should not speak. But I must commend Senator Natasha Akpoti for even making the effort, because we have 4 senators there, and some of them are even more experienced than in politics and public service. You have a former deputy governor, she didn't say anything. It was Senator Natasha Akpoti who just came back from a draconian, 6-month suspension, the most stringent, the most punitive ever in the history of the Senate since the return of democracy, where she was suspended for 6 months for alleging that she was sexually harassed and her privileges and rights were being trampled on. like a hobby, because she refused to become a, let me not use that word, the mass media. But what I want to say is that, it's a call to the other senators to also wake up, because if they had maybe earlier on intervened, it would have helped the matter. Number two, that bill is a HB, is a House bill. So what were the female lawmakers doing in the House? And I asked a question on social media that, were women groups invited when this amendment was being done? Were healthcare professionals invited? Were the right associations, the right people, were they invited? Because I'm telling you that I know that if you ask the average doctor, they know what they see on a daily basis. How many women and girls come in as emergency cases, and there are people who have had an unsafe abortion, and they have to quickly intervene to save them. So I don't know whether the right stakeholders were invited, to either submit memoranda or to give their own professional take on the amendment of that part of the criminal code. But I have to commend Senator Natasha Putti. She did put in her try to speak about it, but she was now defeated by the Senate rules, and I don't think anybody would have been able to do anything better, maybe except for maybe speaking earlier, when that bill was brought for concurrence to be brought to the floor of the Senate for debate. And I have to commend the other senators who said there is need to really take time and look at the bill, and then refer it back to the Judiciary and Legal Matters Committee. And I hope that they will go the extra mile to really talk to stakeholders. And I think also that the Health Committee should have been joined. There have been a special committee to look, because it's not just the human rights issue, but it's good that the medical personnel and women also give insight, so that the legal minds will now know how to go about that bill. But like I said, my advice is that bill should be dropped and thrown into the dustbin.
Now, you've called for the bill to be thrown to the trash bin, given the numerous issues of very pressing social demand for the Nigerian people. I will ask you, with the reality of this bill, some of which you mentioned, were the lips of the mouth of these honorable members who were women sealed when this matter was brought before the Green Chamber for discussion? What was the level of their input for it to still be at the level it is? Now, what challenge are you giving to the women in there on issues of women when they come up again? And by extension, what challenge are you giving to women politicians outside, and then the women vote that may send them in there to expand the chances of women contribution to critical matters such as this?
Somebody could argue that it's not the women that vote in a lawmaker, whether it's male or female. But if you look at the data of voting in Nigeria, you see that even the male lawmakers say that women are some of the most loyal voters. So when you go into the National Assembly, especially as a female, female lawmakers, you should prioritize issues that have to do with women. You should be alert to issues that have to do with women. You should put as one of the legislative agenda women issues, women empowerment, protection of women and girls, their rights. As a female lawmaker, you have a double responsibility, because you are representing not just your people across demographics, you are representing women. And there are so many, issues that are affecting women. There's so much work. Look, if you're a lawmaker and you decide to focus on women, you will still make a huge reputation for yourself. You will still win the elections, because like I said, women make some of the most loyal voters. They don't just talk, they go on election day and they vote. They protect their votes. They sacrifice their time. They support you. Women are, the easiest people. You don't even need to buy votes from women, and they vote for you. So when you go there are so many issues women are facing in Nigeria. Women struggle for access to credit. Women do not inherit property, do not inherit land. Women, there's a spike in rape and sexual and gender-based violence. There's sex for grades. There's a menstrual poverty. There's so much that women are going through in Nigeria that it should come naturally to a female lawmaker to put the safety, the prosperity, and the happiness, the welfare of women as their legislative agenda. So women need to be more alert. So it's demanding some time to be a lawmaker. You might have committee meetings. You might have to travel to your your constituents as frequent as possible. But when it comes to women issues, if you really prioritize them, even your staff and people around you know that when it comes to anything, debate concerning any law that affects women, they will alert you and you will now be there to participate. So I think that's just what they need to do. They need to be more aware. Look at it now. A lot of things that feminists and women groups fought for in terms of governance and female representation has helped a lot of female politicians. For example, some of the things that we fought for is that there should be female representation even at the lowest to the highest cadre of political parties. That is why most of the major political parties now, they said from the world level, you have women as delegates. That's why a woman that if she plays her cards right, already you have like 2-3 delegates from each ward, whereas the man is struggling for those same other delegates, including the women. It has happened before, where a female candidate aspirant gets ticket because of this same activism that we should have women at every level. So now women groups are fighting for some of the gender bills. One of them, which the National Assembly seems disposed to, and we commend them for that, is the extra seat for women. So when these women get that extra seat, they should know that who much is given, what is expected. They should go to that National Assembly and prioritize issues that affect women. You don't have to antagonize the men. You don't have to, do anything. But the men will even understand that you are here because of a certain, intervention, a certain kind of action that was pushed by women. You're having an extra. It's going to cost Nigeria more money, although we've calculated it, and that money will not cost Nigeria so much. But for you to go there, have this special recognition. That's the way I look at it. This affirmative action that women have taken, you should make sure that women remain your number one priority. And if you do that, it's gainful because women constitute 50% of the population. So even if you go as a lawmaker and concentrate on women, there will still be impact in society.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. Unfortunately, viewers, we have not received any call by virtue of one technical error or the other. We sincerely apologize for that. It has been a very good session interacting with our feminist and social and public commentator in the person of KEMI YESUFU, the unabashed believer in the capacity of a woman to man any office in the country and be able to deliver the deliverables of democracy to the people. You have just heard spoken about the issue of abortion, or we say pregnancy termination, depending on the circumstances that require it. Of course, it is not a decision that is taken willfully by a woman. It is one that is done because there is a challenge that warranted that decision. Thank you very much for joining us, KEMI YESUFU. We are very grateful for being with us on the Zoom connection. Now, here is where we are calling it a wrap on the polity today because of our time, which of course it is the usual daily limitation we experience when we are handling such topic of general interest. I want to extend my appreciation to those at the back end, the ever capable Iyanya, that young man who has a way of being calm in the presence of very tough situations. Thank you for being there. Thank you, Eukaria. I think Joseph is also there. Thank you very much for being there. Without you, the success of this program at the back end wouldn't have been. I am OSADEBAMWEN, signing off from now here on the Polity on Captain TV. See you on Wednesday.